I never thought the happiest day of my son's life would become the most devastating of mine. As I stood there, adjusting my tie and watching guests take their seats for his wedding, my heart swelled with pride. He was everything a father could wish for: kind, hard-working, respectful, and now about to marry the love of his life. Yet as my eyes swept over the crowd, they landed on one face that froze me in place. Sitting boldly in the front row, as though he had every right to be there, was my wife's lover. The smirk on his face was impossible to miss, a smug grin that cut deeper than any blade. My chest tightened as 1,000 thoughts collided in my head. How dare he? How dare this man, who had stolen my wife's loyalty, show his face at my son's wedding, as if he were part of my family? My hands curled into fists, but I knew I couldn't ruin my son's special day. Not with an outburst, not with anger. Still, I couldn't ignore the weight pressing down on me. Something had to be done. I glanced toward my wife. She was sitting just 2 seats away from him, her eyes darting nervously between us. When she caught my gaze, she quickly looked away, pretending to focus on the flowers lining the aisle. That was all the confirmation I needed. She had invited him. She had let him sit there, in the most honored place, on the most sacred day for our family. My stomach churned as I tried to process it all. The ceremony began. My son walked in with his bride, both of them radiant, both of them unaware of the storm brewing just a few rows away. Applause filled the hall, but my eyes remained fixed on that smirk. It was as if he wanted me to know, wanted to remind me of everything I had lost, everything he had taken. And my wife, my partner of decades, sat there silently, complicit in it all. As the vows were spoken, I tried to focus on my son's joy, but bitterness coiled inside me. Memories of late nights when my wife claimed she was working, the secretive phone calls, the unexplained absences, all of it pieced together into a truth I had tried to bury. But now, here it was, shoved in my face in the cruelest way possible. When the officiant declared them husband and wife, the hall erupted in cheers. Guests stood to clap, and I clapped too, but my eyes never left the man in the front row. He leaned forward, whispering something to my wife that made her stifle a laugh. That was it. I knew then that silence would no longer be my shield. The reception was held in a grand hall, music filling the air as guests mingled, and the newlyweds basked in love and congratulation. I stood near the bar, my drink untouched, watching my wife and her lover interact with people as though nothing were wrong. He introduced himself to guests, shook hands, and even patted my son on the back. I nearly lost it then and there, but I held on, waiting for the right moment. That moment came during the speeches. The best man gave a heartfelt toast, followed by the maid of honor. Then, as tradition called, it was my turn, the father of the groom. I rose, steadying myself as I held the microphone. My son looked at me with pride, and that gave me strength. Today is supposed to be a day of love, unity, and celebration, I began, my voice steady though my heart raced. And it is. I couldn't be prouder of my son, who has grown into a man worthy of the beautiful bride by his side. But as I look around this room, I also see reminders that not everyone here values love and loyalty the way they should. The room grew quiet. My son's smile faltered slightly, and my wife stiffened in her seat. The lover leaned back, smirk still plastered on his face, daring me to continue. And I did. Marriage is built on trust, I continued, and when that trust is broken, it can destroy more than just 2 people, it can ripple through an entire family. Unfortunately, betrayal has sat at my table, shared my meals, and today even dared to sit in the front row of my son's wedding. Gasps echoed through the hall. My wife's face drained of color. Her lover's smirk wavered, just slightly. I locked eyes with him. Yes, I said clearly, my voice cutting through the silence. The man sitting proudly there, next to my wife, is not just a guest. He is her lover. He has been for some time. And while today is about my son, I refuse to let this charade continue in front of the very people who know and love us. The hall erupted in whispers and shock. My son's eyes widened, his bride's hand tightening around his. My wife shot up from her seat, her voice trembling as she hissed, "How could you do this? Not here, not today." But I didn't flinch. "No," I said firmly. "How could you do this? How could you bring him here to mock me, to disrespect our family on our son's most important day?" The lover tried to stand, muttering something about lies, but I wasn't done. "Don't bother denying it," I said sharply. "Everyone deserves to know who you really are. A man who hides behind smirks and stolen moments, thinking he's clever. But today, in front of everyone, your little secret is no longer yours to keep." The crowd turned, eyes narrowing on him. Guests whispered, shook their heads. Some even moved away from him as though betrayal itself was contagious. My wife's hands trembled as she reached for me, but I pulled away. "I stayed silent for too long," I said, my voice softer now but filled with finality. "But not anymore. This ends here. For my son, for my family, for myself." I set the microphone down and walked off the stage. The room buzzed with chaos, my wife's pleas drowned out by the murmurs of shocked relatives. My son followed me outside moments later, his face a mix of pain and confusion. "Dad, is it true?" he asked. I nodded, my chest heavy. "I'm sorry you had to find out this way. But yes, it's true." He was quiet for a long time. Then he hugged me tightly. "You didn't ruin today," he whispered. "They did. You just gave me the truth." Tears stung my eyes, but I held him close. In that moment, I knew I hadn't destroyed his wedding. I had saved it from being a stage for lies. Inside, my wife's world was collapsing. Guests avoided her, whispers followed her every move, and the man she'd risked everything for no longer looked so smug. The smirk was gone, replaced by the realization that his game was over. As for me, I walked away from that hall not as a broken man, but as one finally free. The betrayal had cut deep, yes, but exposing it had healed something inside me. My wife's lover thought his smirk would haunt me forever, but in the end, it was his downfall. And I had the last word.